If there's one person in the history that I could have dinner with, it would be my grandfather who is deceased. His name was John L. Cummings, and he would always tell me about our family history. He taught me how to sail a boat, and one thing that he loved was Disney World. He passed away when I was in my freshman year of college back in 2007. He was a great man. One thing about him that was kind of iconic and different is he was a single father. His wife passed away. I don't know how old he was. I just know that my mom was 13 years old. I would go down about a few weeks out of the summer, and I would spend my summers with him down in Florida, where he lived. He lived in Punta Gorda, and I would spend the majority of my summers there with him. I would get to go sailing with him. He would take me to Disney World, but most importantly, we got to sit down and we got to talk. So I remember him always telling me stories of our family history. And one thing that always stood out to me, that there was this sign in his house, and it said Livermore. And I always wondered, what in the heck did Livermore stand for our family, because it was in his name. And apparently it stood for Livermore, and his name was John Livermore Cummings. And apparently my grandfather had told me that we had actually founded the city, or a small town rather, up in Maine called Livermore Falls. They were German, and we had settled in that town as the Cummings. It's my mother's maiden name. And so I actually got to go and visit, just like he had back in his younger days. He actually got to go up there and visit. My husband was coming back from a deployment in 2018 while we were up in the Boston area stationed, and when he going up to where we were going, up by Bar Harbor up there in Maine, we stopped in Livermore Falls, and it's really not much of a town, but it is really cool to go in and know that my grandfather stood in those same exact steps. Another thing that we did, and that he was very passionate about, was sailing. He was known as Captain Jack in his sailing club down there. And he had a sign outside of his house that said Captain Jack. He was always known as Grandpa Jack to us, so it seemed fitting that it would be Captain Jack. He wasn't big on drinking, true story. And he literally would take me sailing. He would show me the ropes from the time I was this big to about 16 years old, whenever it was one of the last times we got to go sailing together. So it was really kind of cool to go down and get to visit him and get to learn like another side of my grandfather. It was pretty cool. And to see him in his 80s going around a sailboat, that's even funnier. Another thing is that we would go to Disney World on trips. So he would always take me and my mother to Disney World, and my father would join years later. And he would always go, and his favorite theme park was Epcot, where you get to go to all the countries. And I remember every single time that we would go, we always would have to eat in Germany, and it was like the buffet style one, and they would always put on a show for you. My grandfather loved eating there, so I remember us always eating at Epcot in Germany. I remember going and doing that. But it was cool because we got to go to the different countries, and my grandfather, when he retired, he traveled the world, so it was cool to go and see a snippet of those countries and then hear of his time, that he spent in those countries and the history that he learned. He was very big on history, so it was fun listening to him and everything. Sadly, he passed away in 2017, or 2007, pardon. And so he is someone who I've always wished that I could have had more time with, and that I would love to go to dinner with him so I could learn more about our family, ask him more about sailing now that I'm in my 30s, and just really to talk about our love for Disney and how much it's changed over the time frame since the last time I had gone with him, which was in my teenage years. So, and being my grandfather, I do miss him. Thank you.